let's look at the capital budgeting process. Before any organization can pursue any long-term investment project evaluation, they need to pass through the capital budgeting process. Since the company is going to outlay huge cash or money, therefore they need to be aware of the risk they are going to take and the returns they are expecting from the investment. So this looks at the capital budgeting process, or the processes that companies go through in order to assess whether an opportunity is worth undertaking or not. The first one that the company looks at is the corporate goals. The corporate goals. Now this one looks at what is it that the company wants to achieve. What is it that the company wants to achieve? Or what are the goals of the organization? What are the goals of the organization? Or what does the company seek to obtain in the long term? So before a company can start any project, it must first of all analyze and set its goals right. If their goal is to pursue shareholders' worth in excess of 15%, they should state that accurately. The second process is strategic planning. Strategic planning. Now, the strategic plan is a general design of the firm, and basically it identifies the business and where it intends to position itself in the future. Now, the strategic plan translates the firm's corporate goals into specific policies that the company wants to achieve by setting priorities that the company wants, and specify the structures within which those priorities can be achieved. So basically the strategic planning process is looking at how the company wants to position itself and how it must undertake the positioning. The next is investment opportunities. Investment opportunities. The identification of investment opportunities and the generation of investment proposals is one of the important steps in capital budgeting process. Now this one has to fit specifically into the firm's goals, their mission, their vision, as well as their long-term strategic plan. So the company will pursue any investment opportunity when it fits into its goals, its vision, its mission, and its strategic plan. If the opportunity does not fit into these variables, then company may decide to abandon the project. The next one is preliminary screening. Preliminary screening. Now, Companies pursue the scanning of the business environment and the development of several proposals. These proposals generated must be screened in order to identify the one that is best suited to the goals, missions, vision, as well as the strategic objectives of an organization. Therefore, the identified investment opportunities have to be subjected to a screening process by management to an isolated by management and isolate those opportunities that are unsound, because maybe it is not worth spending shareholders' monies on those proposals or projects. The next process is financial appraisal. Financial appraisal. Financial appraisal, and this one may involve quantitative analysis. Quantitative analysis. So, financial appraisal simply means that the company here may decide to use tools to analyze the proposed projects quantitatively. Now, how can they appraise projects using quantitative analysis? This can involve forecasting techniques, or the application of forecasting techniques, project evaluation techniques, risk analysis techniques, and mathematical programming techniques that the company deems fit to be used in the analysis of the project. And the main objective of this is to assess whether the project will provide returns or it will not provide the required number of returns, and it fits into the risk appetite of shareholders. The next one is evaluation. Sorry, the next one is using this. The next one is evaluating the proposals. But this time, we are using qualitative factors. Qualitative factors. While this one is looking at quantitative numbers, this one is looking at qualitative using judgments. So companies pursue a lot of objectives. Some of these objectives are financial in nature, while others are non-financial. Therefore, the company may decide to use certain qualitative factors to appraise the investment project, basically by asking certain kind of questions. What will be the social impact of our project, or what will be the social impact of the proposed project on the community or on the location that we are found? What will be the environmental impact of the project? Now, I have stated clearly that this project involves huge capital outlays and it's over a long term. So companies might want to consider factors other than financial. And the first one I stated was the social impact, and the next one is the environmental impact. Then companies may also want to consider the possible negative government attitude towards the project. the negative government attitude towards the project. So is government attitude towards the project going to be favorable? And this will stem from whether the project is going to have a negative impact on the community and the entire nation as a whole. Then the next one companies want to consider under qualitative factors is the consequences of consumption of scarce resources. Is the project going to involve the consumption of scarce resources or scarce resources? Will the project bring negative or positive relationship with trade unions? This is another area that is qualitative that companies would want to consider. Will the project bring some legal difficulties, or will the project land the company in legal tussles or legal suits with individuals, pressure groups, and the government? And these and many more are the factors that companies may want to consider in their project or capital budgeting process. If all these factors are considered, company will decide to accept or reject the project. So let's take it here that company accepts and company rejects. Company accepts or they reject the project. Now, if a company accepts the project, it simply means that all the requirements, all the assessments done earlier has met the company's goals, objectives, and the mission, and it won't bring any qualitative effect on the business, as well as it meets the quantitative analysis. Therefore, the company accepts the proposed project. If the company rejects the proposed project, then something will happen. The company will need to go back to the strategic planning process. We need to go to the strategic planning process, assess the project again following the processes, and get back to whether it will still accept the project or not. So the capital budgeting process is an iterative process. It's not a straight jacket process. It can move back and forth. So the capital budgeting process is an iterative process. Hope you understand. Then when the project is accepted, it is implemented. It is implemented. So when the project is accepted, the implementation begins. During this implementation process, various divisions of a firm are likely to be involved in the process. So here, the production units, several personnel with several skills are called upon to use their skills to implement the project. Now, under the implementation too, there's consistent monitoring of project progress with a view to identify potential setbacks earlier for intervention to be implemented. The next phase is facilitation. The first phase is facilitation, monitoring, control, and review. So under this process, the company looks at how it can facilitate the project and how it can monitor as well as control the project. Basically, this one will look at how finance must be within budget, how resources are used, and periodic assessment to see that the variances are not wide enough. So the facilitation and monitoring as well as control and review process basically looks at whether the project is within its scope. Whether the project is within its scope. The next one is to continue, expand or abandon project. So if the project is going on well, the company may decide to continue the project and expand the project. But if it's not going according to plan, then the company may decide to abandon the project and start the process all over again. Then the last process is the post implementation audit. Now the post-implementation audit is a post-mortem of the performance of already implemented projects. So it is basically a post-mortem. It's a post-mortem. Evaluation. Of projects. Now this post-mortem will provide useful feedback to project appraisal or strategic formulation, and it will guide the implementation of other and alternative projects, because experiences gained from one project can be transferred to another project. So the post-mortem implementation audit can also involve an assessment of the qualitative factors as well as the quantitative factors. So the post-mortem can look at the qualitative factors as well as the quantitative factors and assess whether the project achieved the qualitative factors and reduce the impact that I've already stated, such as the legal issues, environmental issues, as well as the social impact, the social impact, negative government attitude. So all these post-mortem audits will seek to assess that all that we assessed earlier on, we've been able to avoid them, or if we are not able to avoid them completely, we have reduced them to the the most barest form. So the next thing we are going to consider is relevant cash flows in capital budgeting.